Now what we are going to learn now is a very important concept on what we call as shifting of graphs. Now what are we trying to understand here? Now let's say we have a function y is equal to mod x. We've learned a little while earlier how the graph of this function looks like. Your graph of y equal to mod x looks like this. Now what would the function or what would the graph of the function mod x minus 3 plus 4 look like? Now the method that we learned a little while earlier is this. We said draw a table, give input values of x, calculate output values of y, and then start plotting them on the graph and then figure out how the graph looks like. Now this is a time consuming process from an exam perspective. So what we will learn here is this. We will learn how graphs shift when certain arithmetic changes happen to the function, original function itself. So let's say for example your base function is y equals f of x. Now what would happen to f of x if I add a constant? Likewise, what would happen to f of x if we subtract a constant? So what would happen in these scenarios? That's what we're going to learn. Now remember that whatever change you make, there is some kind of a shift in the graph that is going to happen. There's a locational shift, geographic shift of the graph that's going to happen. How does it happen? Now the graph shifts. Shift your graph. How do you do it? When you add a constant to f of x, remember your graph shifts by k units upwards. Shift k units upwards. So now I really don't need to tell you what happens when you subtract a constant from f of x. This will shift k units downwards. Now this is when you are adding a constant to a function. Now what would happen if some change happens internally to f of x itself rather than adding a constant outside of f of x? Let's say you add something like this, f of x plus k. Say for example that's what we did, y equal to mod x, x became x minus 3. Similarly, what would happen when you subtract a constant to x? There is definitely going to be a shift that's happening. Now when you are adding or subtracting a constant outside of the main function, remember your graph is shifting upwards or downwards. So now logically you should be able to infer that when the change is happening within the function itself, the graph would shift left or right, not upwards or downwards anymore, because your reference is always your coordinate axis. So it's left to the y axis or top and bottom to the x axis. That's how it happens. So now when you add a constant, what happens is you will have to shift this k units to the left. When you subtract a constant, you will shift k units to the right. With this information, plotting this graph should now be a cakewalk. So what is first happening? Your original function is y equal to mod x. So we'll draw it here. This is your original function y equal to mod x. So what's happening here? So there is an internal change that's happening to the mod value of x itself, where it is x minus 3. That's very similar to this. So x minus k, what happens here? It is shifting k units to the right. Now k units, what is k here? The value is 3. So here you have origin 1, 2, 3. So which means your graph is no more at the origin. It has to be somewhere at this point. But then again, remember there's another constant change that has been added or subtracted here. So what happens when you add k? K units, shifted k units upwards. So you have to shift it 4 units upwards. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. In other words, this is the point where you have your graph y equal to mod x minus 3 plus 4. So this is how your graph has shifted, or in other words, these dotted lines have now become your reference frame of axis because of these shifting that are happening. So this is how you actually understand. You should be able to quickly draw the graph or recognize the graph from among the answer choices based on what changes are happening using this kind of understanding. So this brings us to the end of the concepts that you need to know for functions and graphs.